The stars were dying, and Ambassador Zethkri knew it. He stood in the observation deck of the Coalition flagship, watching another world burn. The planet below had been home to 3 billion Alterians just yesterday. Now it was nothing but a blackened rock, stripped of everything that made it alive. The Vorthak swarm had come and gone in 12 hours, leaving behind only death. Zethkri's 6 arms trembled as he held the communication device. The message he was about to send would either save his people or doom them all. For months, the Coalition Council had debated this moment. The idea was so dangerous that even speaking of it was considered treason by some. They were going to contact the Deathworlders. The humans from Sol 3 were whispered about in dark corners of Coalition space. Stories told of a species so violent that they had turned their own world into a training ground for warfare. Their planet was covered in deadly creatures, poisonous plants, and weather that killed without warning. Yet somehow these humans had not only survived but thrived in such a nightmare world. Most civilized species avoided death worlds completely. The few that had evolved on such planets were considered unstable, dangerous, and impossible to reason with. The Coalition had strict laws about contact with death world species. Until now, those laws had seemed wise. Zethkri pressed the transmission button. The message was simple, direct, and desperate. It contained the Coalition's location, a basic translation matrix, and a single plea that he hoped would reach ears capable of understanding it. 3 days later, Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on the bridge of his patrol ship when everything changed forever. The Iron Wolf was a small vessel by Earth military standards designed for long-range patrols around the outer colonies. Morrison had been captain for 6 years, and in all that time, the most exciting thing he had encountered was a broken mining platform near Jupiter. That changed when his communications officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker, suddenly sat up straight, in his chair. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission on an unknown frequency," Parker said, his voice tight with confusion. "The signal is coming from outside our solar system." Morrison set down his coffee cup. First contact protocols had been theoretical until this moment. Every officer in the Earth Defense Force had studied them, but none had ever expected to use them. "Put it through the translation computers," Morrison ordered, "and wake up Commander Rodriguez. She needs to hear this." The message that came through, the speakers changed everything. The voice was alien, speaking in sounds that human throats could never make, but the translation was clear enough. "We are the Alterian Republic speaking for the Galactic Coalition. We are dying, our worlds burn, our children are consumed. We have tried everything our science and wisdom can offer, but it is not enough. We need warriors. We need those who understand true warfare. We need the humans of Sol 3. Will you help us?" Morrison stared at the speakers in shock. The transmission continued with coordinates, technical data, and images that made his stomach turn. Entire worlds stripped bare. Cities turned to ash. Billions of dead civilians. Commander Lisa Rodriguez arrived on the bridge within minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. She was Earth's most experienced military strategist, a woman who had studied every war in human history and learned from them all. "Play it again," she said after hearing the message once. They listened 3 more times. Each time the images seemed worse. Rodriguez finally spoke, her voice quiet but certain. "They're fighting something that doesn't negotiate, doesn't retreat, and doesn't stop," she said. "Look at those battle reports. The aliens are trying to fight a war while following rules. Their enemy doesn't have rules." Morrison nodded. He had seen enough combat to recognize the signs. "What do we tell them?" "The truth," Rodriguez said. "That humans don't fight fair." Within hours, the message had reached Earth's highest military commanders. General Patricia Williams convened an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Politicians, scientists, and military leaders argued through the night about humanity's response. Some wanted to send medical supplies and food. Others suggested trying to negotiate peace between the aliens and their enemies. A few wanted to ignore the message completely, fearing that contact with advanced aliens would end badly for humanity. General Williams listened to all of them, then made the decision that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. "They didn't ask for medicine or food," she said, her voice cutting through the debate. They didn't ask for negotiators or peacekeepers. They asked for warriors. They asked for us. The politicians protested. Humanity had no idea what they were facing out there. The risks were enormous. Starting an interstellar war could destroy the human race. Rodriguez stood up, datapad in hand. "I've analyzed their combat reports," she said. "These Vorthak things have destroyed 47 worlds in the past year. They're not stopping, they're not slowing down, and the Coalition is losing." She activated the holographic display showing the progression of Vorthak attacks across Coalition space. The pattern was clear and terrifying. At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach human space in 18 months, Rodriguez continued. "We can fight them now with allies and on their territory, or we can fight them later alone and in our own backyard." The room fell silent. The math was simple and brutal. General Williams made the call. "Send a response. Tell them we'll help. And start preparing our fleets." Captain Morrison received his new orders 48 hours later. The Iron Wolf would carry Earth's response to the Coalition, along with a small diplomatic team and enough firepower to make humanity's intentions clear. As his ship prepared to make humanity's first interstellar journey, Morrison read the message he would carry to the dying aliens. It was short, direct, and very human. "We received your call for help. We're coming. When we arrive, your war will end. One way or another." The Iron Wolf jumped to hyperspace, carrying with it the hopes of a dying galaxy and the promise of Earth's particular brand of salvation. Behind them, the greatest military force in human history began to mobilize. The aliens had asked for help. They were about to learn what that meant when you asked Deathworlders to solve your problems. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Stone had seen war before, but nothing had prepared him for this. He stood on the bridge of the Coalition research vessel Harmony's Voice, watching through the massive viewing window as an entire world died. The planet below had been called New Haven by its inhabitants. 3 hours ago, it had been home to 8 million Coalition citizens. Now it was becoming something else entirely. The Vorthak ships moved across the planet's surface like a disease. They were not ships in any way that humans understood the word. Each vessel was a living thing, grown rather than built, with no clear beginning or end. They flowed across continents like black oil, consuming everything in their path. "How long does it usually take?" Stone asked the Coalition officer standing beside him. Commander Veltar's translator crackled as he spoke. His species looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and 4 arms. The consumption phase lasts approximately 6 to 8 hours for a world this size. The Vorthak are very efficient. Stone watched a city disappear beneath the black tide. 8 million people, gone in less than a day. "And you've been fighting them for how long?" 18 months, Veltar replied. "We have won several important strategic victories." Stone turned to look at the alien commander. "You've won victories? Against this?" "Of course. Just last month we successfully evacuated 40% of the population from Kepler Prime before the Vorthak arrived. And we managed to preserve most of the cultural artifacts from their capital city." Dr. Amanda Foster, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up from her datapad. She was Earth's leading expert on alien biology, brought along to study the enemy humanity would soon face. "Commander Veltar, may I ask what happened to the other 60%? The alien's skin darkened, which Stone had learned was their equivalent of embarrassment. "They were consumed. But we saved what we could. The Coalition Council praised our restraint in not using orbital bombardment near civilian areas." Stone stared at him. "Restraint? Yes, we could have used our most powerful weapons, but that would have endangered civilians. The Coalition does not make war on innocents." Dr. Foster and Stone exchanged glances. Both humans were thinking the same thing, but neither wanted to say it out loud. The Coalition was losing because they were trying to fight a genocidal war while following peacetime rules. "Commander," Stone said carefully, "what exactly are your military objectives in this war?" Veltar straightened proudly. "To defend Coalition space while minimizing civilian casualties and preserving cultural heritage sites. We seek to achieve a negotiated settlement that will end the conflict with honor for all parties. All parties, Foster repeated slowly, including the Vorthak. Of course, all sentient life has value. Even our enemies deserve the chance for peaceful coexistence. Stone walked back to the viewing window. The planet below was now completely black. In 6 hours, a world that had existed for thousands of years had been turned into raw materials for the Vorthak war machine. Have you ever tried talking to them? He asked. The Vorthak, I mean. Many times, Veltar said. We have sent diplomatic missions, peace offerings, and cultural exchanges. We even offered them uninhabited worlds to colonize instead of attacking our colonies. What did they say? Nothing. They consumed our diplomats. Foster looked up from her scanner readings. Commander, I'm detecting massive biological activity from the planet's surface. What are they doing down there? Processing, Veltar explained. They convert all organic matter into biomass, which they use to grow new ships and spawn new Vorthak warriors. The minerals and metals become part of their fleet structure. Within 48 hours, they will have doubled their military capacity. Stone felt a cold anger building in his chest. So every world they take makes them stronger. Correct. This is why the war has been so difficult for us. Each defeat makes our enemy more powerful. And you've been fighting them for 18 months like this? The Coalition takes the long view in all conflicts, Veltar said proudly. We do not rush to judgment or act from emotion. Every military action is carefully considered by the Council. Foster closed her scanner and looked at Stone. Her expression was grim. Colonel, I need to send a report to Earth immediately. What's your assessment, Doctor? The Vorthak aren't just an enemy army, she said quietly. They're a biological extinction event. Everything they touch dies and becomes part of them. They don't want territory or resources or political power. They want to consume everything that exists. Stone nodded. He had reached the same conclusion, but hearing it from Earth's top xenobiologist made it real. And the Coalition is trying to fight them with lawyers and philosophers. They're good people, Foster said, glancing at Commander Veltar, who was busy at another station. But they've never faced anything like this before. In their minds, war is politics by other means. They're trying to solve a natural disaster with debate. That evening, Stone and Foster met in the ship's small human quarters. Foster had spent the day analyzing Vorthak biosamples that the Coalition had collected from previous battles. Her findings were worse than expected. They're not really individuals, she explained, showing Stone microscopic images on her portable lab equipment. Each Vorthak organism is connected to every other one through a biological network. They share thoughts, memories, experiences. When one dies, the others learn from it instantly. So they adapt quickly to new threats. Faster than quickly. If we kill one of them with a new weapon, within minutes every other Vorthak in the galaxy knows how to defend against that weapon. They're not just an army, Marcus. They're a single organism with 1 billion bodies. Stone studied the data. His military mind was already working through the implications. That changes everything. You can't negotiate with a cancer. You can't make peace with a plague. Exactly. And the Coalition doesn't understand that. They keep trying to find common ground with something that sees them as food. Stone composed his report to Earth that night. He kept it brief and direct the way military reports should be. But his conclusions were devastating. The Coalition was doomed. Their fleets were being slowly destroyed, their worlds consumed one by one. They had better technology, superior numbers, and thousands of years of military experience. None of it mattered because they were fighting the wrong kind of war. The Vorthak didn't care about honor, or rules, or civilian casualties. They cared about consumption. They would keep eating worlds until there was nothing left to eat. Stone's final paragraph was the most important part of his report. Recommend immediate full military deployment. Enemy cannot be negotiated with, contained, or deterred. This is not a war. This is pest control on a galactic scale. Request permission to show the Coalition what humans mean when we say total war. He sent the message through the ship's quantum communicator, knowing it would reach Earth in hours. Then he went to find Commander Veltar. Commander, he said, I need to ask you something important. When the human fleet arrives, will you follow our tactical recommendations? Feltar's skin flickered with uncertainty. That would depend on what you recommend, Colonel Stone. Stone looked out at the dead world below them. We're going to recommend that you stop fighting fair. The alien commander was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. What does that mean? You'll find out soon enough, Stone said. I just hope you're ready for it. General Patricia Williams stepped off the transport shuttle onto Coalition Station Alpha, and every alien in the docking bay stopped what they were doing to stare. She was not what they had expected. The Coalition leaders had imagined that humans would be larger, more obviously dangerous. Williams was average height for her species, with gray hair and calm eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not the commander of a Deathworlder military force. The aliens would learn their mistake soon enough. Behind Williams came 500 human soldiers, technicians, and officers. They moved with quiet efficiency, their equipment stowed in cases that the Coalition scanners could not penetrate. The humans had politely declined all requests to inspect their weapons and gear. High Counselor Yethmore greeted the human delegation in the station's main conference room. He was a tall, elegant being with golden skin and the bearing of someone who had spent centuries in diplomatic service. Around the table sat representatives from all 12 Coalition species, their best military minds and political leaders. General Williams, Yethmore said, his translator rendering his words in perfect English. We are honored by your presence. We hope that together we can find a solution to our current difficulties. Williams sat down without ceremony. Counselor, I've read the reports. You don't have difficulties, you have an extinction event in progress. My people are here to stop it. The aliens exchanged glances. Admiral Kreshta, the Coalition's supreme military commander, leaned forward. He was from a warrior species, tall and covered in natural armor plating. General, we appreciate Earth's willingness to assist, but this conflict requires careful coordination. We have established protocols for— Your protocols are why you're losing. Williams interrupted. Commander Lisa Rodriguez, sitting beside her, activated a holographic display showing Coalition battle reports from the past 6 months. You've lost 47 worlds, Rodriguez said, her voice matter-of-fact. Your fleet strength has decreased by 30%. Enemy forces have grown by approximately 200%. At current rates, the Coalition will cease to exist in 14 months. The room fell silent. Yethmore's skin darkened with what humans had learned was embarrassment. General, while those numbers are concerning, we must remember that warfare is not simply about victory and defeat. We must consider the moral implications of our actions. Williams stood up and walked to the holographic display, pointing at the images of destroyed worlds. What moral implications? The Vorthak consumed 3 billion sentient beings last month. How many moral implications did they consider? That is exactly why we cannot sink to their level, Admiral Kreshta said firmly. The Coalition represents civilization, order, and justice. If we abandon our principles to defeat the Vorthak, what separates us from them? Dr. Amanda Foster, who had remained quiet until now, spoke up. The difference is simple, Admiral. You'll still be alive. The aliens looked shocked. Foster continued, pulling up biological data from her studies. The Vorthak don't have principles to abandon. They're not evil or good. They're a biological function, like a virus or a wildfire. You can't negotiate with a forest fire. You can't make peace with a plague. You put it out or it consumes everything. Yethmore raised one of his 4 hands. Dr. Foster, surely you're not suggesting that we should abandon all restraint in our military operations? I'm suggesting you should try to win, Foster replied. Your current strategy is designed to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. Their strategy is designed to kill everything and eat the remains. Guess which one works better? Williams returned to her seat. We've brought detailed tactical recommendations based on our analysis of Vorthak behavior and capabilities. But first, I need to know something. When we engage the enemy, will you follow our lead? Admiral Kreshta's armor plates shifted, a sign of agitation in his species. General, the Coalition has 3,000 years of military experience. Our tactical doctrines have been refined through countless conflicts. Perhaps we should coordinate our efforts rather than— Your tactical doctrines assume your enemy cares about surviving, Rodriguez interrupted. The Vorthak don't. They're willing to sacrifice any number of their forces to achieve their objectives. Are you? The question hung in the air like a weapon. None of the coalition leaders answered immediately. Finally, Yethmore spoke. What exactly are you proposing? Williams activated her own display showing human military doctrine and battle plans. Total warfare, no restricted zones, no protected targets, no rules of engagement beyond the complete destruction of enemy forces. The aliens recoiled as if they had been physically struck. Several began speaking at once, their translators creating a chaos of overlapping voices. Williams waited for them to quiet down. You're talking about genocide, Admiral Kreshta said, his voice horrified. No, Williams replied calmly. Genocide is what the Vorthak are doing to you. We're talking about stopping it. Over the next 3 hours, the humans laid out their strategy. It was simple, brutal, and effective. Instead of trying to defend coalition worlds, they would hunt down Vorthak fleets and destroy them completely. Instead of avoiding civilian casualties, they would target the enemy's ability to reproduce and expand. But what about the moral cost? Yethmore asked. How do we justify such methods to our people? How do you justify letting them die? Rodriguez countered. Every day you spend debating ethics, another world gets consumed. Every hour you waste on moral philosophy, 1 million coalition citizens become Vorthak biomass. The first test came sooner than expected. Coalition sensors detected a Vorthak scout fleet approaching the industrial world of Centauri Prime. Standard coalition doctrine called for evacuation procedures and defensive positions around key infrastructure. Captain Jake Morrison, commanding the Iron Wolf, received different orders. All human vessels, this is General Williams, came the transmission. Target designation Alpha is a Vorthak scout fleet, 12 vessels, approaching Centauri Prime. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Repeat, weapons-free. Show them how Deathworlders fight. The coalition fleet took defensive positions around the planet, preparing for a long battle of attrition. They expected the humans to do the same. Instead, Morrison's ship accelerated directly toward the approaching Vorthak fleet. Behind him came the Hellhound under Captain Ryan Clark and 3 more human vessels. They moved, not like a defensive force, but like predators closing in on prey. Admiral Kreshta watched from his flagship in disbelief. What are they doing? They're outnumbered 3-1. On the coalition bridge displays, they could see the human ships diving directly into the Vorthak formation. The enemy vessels immediately swarmed toward them, expecting an easy victory. They had never fought humans before. Morrison's crew had studied every piece of Vorthak biological data that the coalition had collected. They knew exactly where to hit the alien ships to cause maximum damage. More importantly, they knew that the Vorthak had never faced enemies who fought to kill, rather than to win points in some cosmic debate. The Iron Wolf's weapons were not designed to disable or capture. They were designed to destroy completely. When human missiles struck Vorthak bioships, there were no survivors, no wounded, no prisoners. There was only death. Within 20 minutes, the entire Vorthak scout fleet was nothing but debris floating in space. Not a single human ship had been lost. On Coalition Station Alpha, the alien commanders watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something they had thought impossible, a quick, decisive victory against the Vorthak. How? Admiral Kreshta asked. They didn't try to minimize casualties, Dr. Foster explained. They didn't worry about collateral damage, or prisoner treatment or proportional response. They identified the enemy and killed it as efficiently as possible. General Williams stood up, preparing to leave the conference room. That was a small engagement. When our main fleet arrives, we'll show you what humans can do when we're really trying. As the human delegation filed out, Yethmore called after them. General, what you did today, was it necessary? Williams paused at the doorway. Counselor, you've been asking the wrong question for 18 months. You keep asking what's morally acceptable. Start asking what's necessary to survive. The Vorthak already know the answer. Outside the conference room, Rodriguez walked beside Williams. Think they'll adapt to our methods? Williams shook her head. They can't, it's not in their nature, that's why they called us. And if they try to stop us from fighting effectively, then they'll learn why humans don't lose wars, Williams replied. We don't stop fighting until the enemy is completely gone. The war changed the day humans stopped playing defense. Colonel Marcus Stone stood in the command center of Firebase Alpha, the first human military base established on contested ground. 3 months ago, the planet New Geneva had been locked in a grinding defensive war. Coalition forces had been slowly losing ground to Vorthak invasion forces for 8 months, fighting from bunker to bunker as the enemy consumed everything in their path. That was before humans arrived with a different idea about how wars should be fought. Status report, Stone called out to his operations officer, Major Kevin Price. All Vorthak ground forces have been eliminated from Sectors 7 through 12, Price reported. Engineering teams are setting charges in the tunnel networks. We should have the entire underground complex cleared within 6 hours. Stone nodded and walked to the tactical display. The map showed New Geneva's surface marked with thousands of red dots, each one representing a destroyed Vorthak position. 3 days ago, those same dots had been green, showing active enemy strongholds that coalition forces had been unable to approach. The difference was simple. Humans didn't attack Vorthak positions. They destroyed them completely. Staff Sergeant Nicole Hayes emerged from the elevator leading to the underground levels. Her combat armor was covered in the black residue that Vorthak biomatter left behind when it died. She looked tired but satisfied. Tunnel complex is clear, sir, she reported. My team eliminated approximately 200 enemy organisms and destroyed their breeding chambers. No human casualties. Stone looked at the young sergeant with respect. She and her squad had spent 6 hours moving through tunnels that coalition forces had declared impenetrable. The aliens had tried to assault the underground network dozens of times, losing hundreds of soldiers in the attempt. Hayes and 12 human soldiers had cleared the entire complex in one operation. How did you do it, Sergeant? Stone asked. The coalition lost 3 companies trying to take those tunnels. Hayes removed her helmet, revealing a face that was barely old enough to vote. Sir, they were trying to capture territory and preserve the tunnel structure for later use. We were trying to kill everything inside. Turns out that's a lot easier. The coalition observers had watched the human ground assault with a mixture of horror and fascination. Where their own forces moved carefully, checking for civilians and avoiding damage to infrastructure, human soldiers moved like a force of nature. They didn't occupy buildings, they cleared them. They didn't secure areas, they sterilized them. Dr. Amanda Foster entered the command center carrying a data pad full of biological readings. She had been studying Vorthak remains from the recent battles, trying to understand how the enemy operated on a biological level. Colonel, I have the analysis you requested, she said. The Vorthak on this planet were part of a larger organism, connected through biological networks in the tunnel systems. When we destroyed their central nervous clusters, the entire local population died simultaneously. Stone examined her data. So they're not individual creatures? Not exactly. Think of them like cells in a body. Each one can function independently, for a short time, but they're all part of a single biological system. That's why the coalition had so much trouble fighting them. They were trying to kill individual soldiers when they should have been targeting the organism itself. This information had changed everything about human tactics. Instead of fighting Vorthak warriors one by one, human forces now hunted for their biological control centers. Instead of trying to hold territory, they focused on destroying the enemy's ability to coordinate and reproduce. The results had been devastating for the Vorthak. In space, Admiral Lisa Rodriguez commanded the largest human battle fleet ever assembled. 47 ships carrying 20,000 personnel and enough firepower to crack planets. They moved through Vorthak-controlled space not like explorers or diplomats, but like exterminators. The Vorthak Queen Mind, a vast intelligence spread across thousands of bioships, encountered this new type of warfare for the first time during the Battle of Wolf 359. For a species that had consumed entire galaxies, the concept of enemies who fought harder when cornered was incomprehensible. Rodriguez watched the tactical display from the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution. The Vorthak fleet was massive, easily 3 times the size of her human force. In any conventional battle, the smart move would be to retreat and fight another day. Humans didn't fight conventional battles. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez, she transmitted. Target priority is enemy command vessels. We're not here to win territory or capture prisoners. We're here to kill everything that moves, weapons free. The human fleet scattered into attack formations that would have horrified coalition military observers. Instead of maintaining defensive lines, they dove directly into the enemy formation. Instead of trying to preserve their own ships, they focused entirely on destroying the enemy. Captain Ryan Clark, commanding the Hellhound, found himself surrounded by Vorthak bioships. His vessel was taking heavy damage, and his crew was down to half strength. Coalition doctrine would have called for immediate withdrawal. Clark had different orders. Engineering, give me everything the engines have, he commanded. Navigation, plot a collision course with that big one in the center. All hands prepare for ramming speed. The Hellhound accelerated directly toward the largest Vorthak vessel, a massive bioship that served as a local command node for the enemy fleet. Clark's crew worked frantically to keep the ship together long enough to reach their target. Captain, we have a transmission from the Coalition observer ship, his communications officer reported. They're ordering us to withdraw. Clark smiled grimly. Tell them humans don't withdraw. We advance in a different direction. The Hellhound struck the Vorthak command ship at full velocity, both vessels disappearing in a massive explosion that lit up space for millions of kilometers. Without their command node, dozens of smaller Vorthak ships began moving erratically, their biological coordination disrupted. Human fighters swarmed the confused enemy vessels, destroying them with methodical efficiency. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the entire Vorthak fleet had been eliminated. The human fleet had lost 8 ships, but they had achieved something the Coalition thought impossible, a decisive victory against superior numbers. The Vorthak Queen Mind, experiencing its first major defeat in centuries, began to adapt. It started pulling its forces back from contested systems, consolidating its strength for a massive counterattack. The Hive intelligence had finally encountered something it didn't understand: enemies who preferred mutual destruction to defeat. Bax. On New Geneva, Colonel Stone received a transmission from Coalition High Command. The message was brief and filled with barely concealed terror. Colonel Stone, Coalition Command requests immediate clarification of human tactical doctrine. Our observers report that your forces are employing methods that appear to violate several interstellar warfare conventions. Please advise. Stone looked at the message for a long moment, then dictated his reply. Coalition Command, human tactical doctrine is simple. We identify the enemy, and then we eliminate it completely. We do not take prisoners, we do not negotiate, and we do not leave survivors to regroup and attack again. If this violates your conventions, perhaps you should consider updating your conventions. He paused, then added, also, you might want to evacuate any Coalition personnel from contested systems. When our main offensive begins, we will not be able to guarantee their safety. Humans fight to win, not to follow rules. That night, Stone stood on the observation deck of Firebase Alpha, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the largest human military force in history was preparing to do what Coalition forces had been unable to accomplish in 18 months of war. They were going to end the Vorthak threat permanently. Dr. Foster joined him at the window. The Coalition is terrified of us now, she said quietly. They think we're going to become the next Vorthak. Stone nodded. Maybe we are. But at least we choose when to stop. And when do we stop, Marcus? Stone looked at the burned surface of New Geneva, where human soldiers were systematically eliminating every trace of Vorthak contamination. When there's nothing left to kill. Above them, the stars continued to burn, indifferent to the war being fought for the future of all life in the galaxy. But for the first time in 18 months, the Vorthak were afraid. They had finally met something more dangerous than themselves. 6 months after first contact, the Vorthak swarm was extinct. Colonel Marcus Stone walked through the Memorial Garden on New Geneva, reading the names carved into black stone. Each name represented a human soldier who had died fighting for people they had never met, on worlds they had never seen. The list was long, 12,000 names from every nation on Earth. The garden was quiet except for the sound of wind moving through the newly planted trees. Coalition engineers had worked for weeks to restore life to the planet's surface after the Vorthak contamination had been eliminated. It would take decades before New Geneva was truly alive again, but at least it had decades to spare. Dr. Amanda Foster found Stone sitting on a bench near the center of the memorial. She carried a datapad containing her final report on the war, a document that would be classified at the highest levels and buried in Earth's deepest archives. "The transport leaves for Earth in 2 hours," she said, sitting beside him. "Are you ready to go home?" Stone looked at the names on the memorial wall. "Are we heroes or monsters, Amanda?" "Both, probably," she replied without hesitation. "Does it matter?" "The Coalition thinks it matters. Half of them want to build statues of us, and the other half want us to leave their space forever." Foster activated her datapad, showing him the final casualty reports. The Vorthak consumed 47 worlds and killed 28 billion Coalition citizens before we arrived. In 6 months of human intervention, we eliminated the entire species and saved an estimated 200 billion lives across 12 star systems. And the cost? 12,000 human deaths. Complete extinction of an entire species. The psychological trauma of every Coalition citizen who witnessed human military operations. Stone stood up and walked to the memorial wall, placing his hand on one of the names. Sergeant Nicole Hayes had died in the final assault on the Vorthak home system, leading her squad through the breeding chambers of their central hive. She was 23 years old. "She volunteered for the mission," Stone said quietly. "They all did. When General Williams asked for volunteers to stay behind and make sure every last Vorthak nest was destroyed, 30,000 humans stepped forward." Foster joined him at the wall. "The Coalition doesn't understand that. They can't comprehend why humans would sacrifice themselves for strangers. Maybe that's what makes us different from the Vorthak. We choose who lives and who dies. They just consumed everything." On Coalition Station Alpha, General Patricia Williams met with the Coalition Council for the final time. The conference room was the same one where she had first presented human military doctrine 6 months ago. The alien leaders looked older now, marked by the weight of what they had witnessed. High Counselor Yethmore spoke first, his golden skin dim with exhaustion. "General Williams, the Coalition wishes to express its eternal gratitude for humanity's assistance in our time of greatest need. We would like to discuss establishing permanent diplomatic relations and perhaps learning from your military expertise." Williams sat quietly for a moment before responding. "Counselor, you asked for help. We gave it. You didn't ask to become like us, and I pray you never have to." Admiral Kreshta leaned forward, his armor plates reflecting the room's soft light. "General, surely there are lessons we can learn from human tactics, ways to defend ourselves more effectively in the future." "You want to learn how to commit genocide efficiently?" Williams asked bluntly. "How to sleep at night after eliminating an entire species? How to send young soldiers to their deaths because it's the only way to save everyone else?" The aliens fell silent. Williams continued, her voice gentle but firm. "We didn't teach you how to fight like humans because you shouldn't have to fight like humans. The day you start thinking like us is the day you become something you won't recognize." Commander Lisa Rodriguez, sitting beside Williams, activated a holographic display showing the final battle statistics. In 6 months of operations, human forces eliminated 100% of Vorthak military assets, destroyed all breeding facilities, and sterilized every contaminated world. Total enemy survivors, 0. 0, repeated Yethmore softly. An entire species gone. "An entire species that was consuming the galaxy," Williams replied. "Sometimes the choice isn't between good and evil. Sometimes it's between survival and extinction." Captain Jake Morrison entered the conference room carrying a secure transmission from Earth. He handed it to Williams, who read it quickly before addressing the council. I've just received orders from Earth Command, she announced. All human military forces are to withdraw from Coalition space immediately. We're going home. The aliens looked shocked. Admiral Kreshta spoke first. General, surely some human presence would be beneficial for future security. No, Williams interrupted. We came here to solve a problem. The problem is solved. Our job is finished. Dr. Foster stood up from her seat at the back of the room. The Coalition will be drafting new laws about Deathworld contact, won't you? Yethmore's skin darkened with embarrassment. The Council has discussed guidelines for future interactions with species from high-gravity worlds. You're going to make it illegal to contact humans again unless the galaxy is ending, Foster said. It wasn't a question. The Sol Accords, Admiral Kreshta admitted. We agree never to contact Earth again unless facing an extinction-level threat that cannot be resolved through conventional means. Williams nodded approvingly. Good. Some boundaries should only be crossed in the darkest hour. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Yethmore called out one final question. General, how do we know that humans won't become what we just defeated? How do we know you won't decide that the galaxy would be better under human rule? Williams paused at the doorway. Because you asked for help and we answered. That's what makes us different from the monsters. We choose when to stop. The last human ships departed Coalition space 3 days later. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Iron Wolf, watching alien worlds disappear on his screens. His ship had been the first to answer the Coalition's call for help, and now it was among the last to leave. Any regrets, Captain? Asked his communications officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker. Morrison thought about the question seriously. We saved over 200 billion lives, Sam. We prevented the extinction of 12 species. The galaxy is safe from a threat that had consumed entire civilizations. That's not what I asked. Morrison looked at the memorial photos mounted on his bridge wall. Faces of crew members who had died in the war, young men and women who would never see Earth again. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that we were the only ones who could do it, but I don't regret doing it. Back on Earth, Dr. Foster completed her classified report in a secure facility deep beneath the Pentagon. Her final conclusions would be read by only a handful of people, and then locked away forever. Human military capabilities proved devastatingly effective against an extinction-level biological threat, she wrote. However, the psychological cost to our species and the terror we inspired in our allies suggests that such methods should remain a last resort. She paused in her writing, thinking about the memorial garden on New Geneva and the names carved in stone. Then she continued typing. We are the galaxy's immune system. We are what happens when evolution produces a species capable of total warfare, constrained by moral choice. We can end any threat completely, but we choose not to end everything. Foster saved the document and sealed it with the highest security classifications. Her final sentence would become the unofficial motto of Earth's deep space military forces. Pray we're never needed again. 6 months later, the Coalition erected a monument in the center of their capital city. It was simple black stone with a single inscription in every Coalition language. To the humans of Earth, who answered our call and stopped when we asked them to, may the galaxy never need such help again. In the deepest archives of Coalition, Central Command, a single emergency protocol was established. It was labeled Project Final Hour and contained one set of coordinates, Sol System, Earth. The instructions were simple. Open only when facing the complete extinction of all sentient life in the galaxy. The humans had gone home, leaving behind a galaxy that was safe, grateful, and quietly terrified of what they had witnessed. The Coalition would rebuild, expand, and prosper for thousands of years, and in the darkest corners of space, when children asked their parents about the monsters that used to eat worlds, the parents would tell them about the other monsters who came from a blue planet and made the first monsters disappear forever. The war was over. Humanity had won. But winning, the galaxy learned, was the easy part. Living with what victory required was much harder. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the cruiser Liberty, watching the massive alien station grow larger on his screen. 3 human ships moved slowly toward Nexus Prime, his cruiser Liberty, the destroyer Freedom, and the smaller frigate Independence. They looked tiny compared to the giant station that floated in space like a metal city. "Captain, we're getting signals from 12 different alien species," said Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her communications station. "They're all watching our approach." Morrison nodded but said nothing. His hands were sweaty inside his gloves. This was humanity's first real chance to join the galaxy's big players. Earth had been alone among the stars for so long. Now they were finally meeting the Galactic Council, the group that controlled trade and territory in this part of space. Commander Lisa Hayes checked her tactical displays. "Sir, I'm counting over 200 alien ships around the station. Some of them are huge. That Zephyrian dreadnought is 3 times our size." "Stay calm, Commander," Morrison said quietly. "We're here to talk, not fight." Ambassador Karen Walsh walked onto the bridge. She was a small woman with gray hair, but she carried herself like someone who had negotiated with world leaders back on Earth. Today she wore her best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with gold trim. "Captain, are we ready?" she asked. "As ready as we can be, Ambassador. Chief Carter says all systems are working properly." Ben Carter's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "We're running smooth, Captain. These old ships might not look like much, but they'll get us home." The Liberty shook slightly as they entered the station's docking area. Alien ships of all shapes and sizes surrounded them. Some looked like metal insects. Others were smooth and white like pearls. A few seemed to be made of crystal that glowed with inner light. "Docking complete, sir," reported Lieutenant Brooks. "The aliens are requesting that we come aboard for the meeting." Morrison looked at Ambassador Walsh. "You sure about this?" She straightened her jacket. "We've come too far to turn back now. Earth needs this, Captain." The meeting room inside the Yao station was enormous. 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that was bigger than a basketball court. The humans took their seats at the small section marked for new applicants. Morrison felt like a child sitting at the adults' table. The Zephyrian representative spoke first. Admiral Kexitar was a tall reptile with golden scales that caught the light when he moved. His voice was deep and seemed to echo from multiple throats. "So these are the humans," he said, looking at them like they were insects. "How small." A clicking sound came from across the table. The Hive Queen Zizak was an insect-like creature, with 4 arms and compound eyes. When she spoke, her voice sounded like metal scraping on metal. "3 ships," she clicked. "Only 3 ships. How do they expect to join the Council with such a tiny fleet?" Ambassador Walsh stood up. "Honored representatives, Earth comes to you in peace. We may be new to space travel, but we are eager to learn and contribute to galactic civilization." Laughter filled the room. Not human laughter. The sounds that came from the alien representatives were harsh and mocking. The Vorthak representative, a being made of what looked like living smoke, spoke without moving what might have been its mouth. "Contribute? What could a species that controls only one star system possibly contribute to us?" Admiral Kekstar leaned forward. "Your ships are ancient by our standards. Your weapons are primitive. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Why should we waste our time?" Commander Hayes whispered to Morrison. "Sir, their scans are very aggressive. They're not just looking. They're studying our ships like we're some kind of museum exhibit." Morrison kept his face blank, but inside he was angry. These aliens weren't just rejecting Earth's application, they were insulting humanity itself. Ambassador Walsh tried again. "We understand we have much to learn. That's why we're here. Earth has resources, skilled people, and a strong desire for peace." More laughter. A new voice spoke up. This one belonged to a craven, a species that looked like armored bears walking on 2 legs. "Peace? You speak of peace when you can't even defend your own shipping lanes? We've heard reports of human merchant ships being attacked by pirates. Where is your mighty fleet then?" The other aliens seemed to find this very funny. Some made sounds that might have been their version of laughter. Others simply stared at the humans with what looked like amusement. Admiral Kekstar stood up to, his full height which was nearly 3 meters tall. The Council has made its decision. Humanity's application for membership is rejected. You are also denied observer status. Ambassador Walsh's face went pale. Rejected? But we haven't even presented our full case yet. There is no need, the Zephyrian said coldly. A species with 3 small ships and 1 barely defended world has nothing to offer the Council. You are children playing with toys while adults conduct real business. The Hive Queen clicked her approval. Return to your little planet, mammals. Perhaps in a few hundred years when you have grown up, we might consider listening to you again. The Vorthak added, if you survive that long, the galaxy is dangerous for weak species. Morrison felt his hands form fists under the table. He wanted to say something to defend humanity's honor, but Ambassador Walsh caught his eye and shook her head slightly. We understand, she said quietly. Thank you for your time. As the humans left the meeting room, Morrison could hear the aliens still talking about them. Words like primitive, weak, and amusing followed them down the corridor. Back on the Liberty, the mood was dark. The crew knew from their captain's face that things had gone badly. Orders, sir? Asked Commander Hayes. Morrison looked at the alien station on his screen, then at the hundreds of ships surrounding them. Somewhere out there, he knew hostile eyes were watching, calculating, planning. Set course for Earth, he said finally. We're going home. But as the 3 human ships began their journey away from Nexus Prime, Morrison noticed something. Several alien fleets were moving into formation behind them. The mockery was over. Now came something much more dangerous. He touched his console and sent a coded message toward Earth. Package delivered. Response required. The aliens thought they had seen everything humanity could offer. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The 3 human ships moved slowly away from Nexus Prime. Captain Morrison sat in his command chair, staring at the main screen. Behind them, the alien station grew smaller, but the shame felt bigger with each passing minute. Captain, said Commander Hayes quietly, the crew is asking questions. They want to know what happened in there. Morrison rubbed his forehead. How could he tell them that humanity had been rejected like children asking to sit with adults? That the most powerful beings in the galaxy had laughed at Earth's hopes? Tell them the truth, Commander, the alien said no. They think we're too weak to matter. Lieutenant Brooks turned from her station. Sir, I'm picking up chatter from the alien fleets. They're not trying to hide their communications. It's like they don't care if we hear them. What are they saying? Brooks looked uncomfortable. They're making jokes about us, sir. Betting on how long Earth will last once word gets out about our situation. Some species are already talking about raiding our shipping lanes. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. Without the protection of galactic law, human merchant ships would become easy targets. Pirates and hostile aliens would see Earth as defenseless prey. Ambassador Walsh walked onto the bridge. Her diplomatic smile was gone, replaced by tired lines around her eyes. Captain, I need to send a message to Earth Command. They need to know we failed. Ambassador, Morrison said carefully. This isn't your fault. Those aliens made up their minds before we even spoke. Maybe, she said. But Earth was counting on us. Now what happens to our colonies? Our trade routes? Without Council protection, we're alone out here. Chief Carter's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I'm getting an encrypted signal from Earth, priority channel, eyes only. Morrison looked around the bridge. I'll take it in my ready room. The small room next to the bridge felt cramped as Morrison activated the secure terminal. The EI face that appeared on the screen belonged to Admiral Steve Parker, head of Earth's Space Command. The man looked older than Morrison remembered. Jake, Parker said without greeting. I saw your coded message. The aliens rejected us? Completely, sir. They wouldn't even give us observer status. Called us children with toys. Parker nodded like he had expected this. And they're following you? Morrison frowned. How did you know? Because aliens like that always push to see how far they can go. They see weakness and they have to test it. Are you ready for the next part? Next part, sir? Parker leaned closer to the screen. Operation Lazarus is now active. You know what that means, Captain. Morrison felt his heart beat faster. Operation Lazarus was something they had planned but hoped never to use. It meant Earth had been preparing for this exact situation. Are you sure, Admiral? Once we activate Protocol 7, there's no going back. I'm sure. Those aliens want to. See what happens when they push humanity? Let's show them. You have your orders, Captain. The screen went dark. Morrison sat alone for a long moment, thinking about what was coming. Then he returned to the bridge. Commander Hayes, Chief Carter, report to my ready room. Now. When his senior officers arrived, Morrison sealed the door. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room until I give the word. Hayes and Carter exchanged glances. The fleet we brought here, Morrison continued, was never meant to be our only military force. We're bait people. While the aliens were busy laughing at our 3 little ships, Earth's real defense force has been getting ready. Carter's eyes went wide. You're talking about the black projects? The ones we weren't supposed to know about? All of them, and more. For 50 years, while Earth was exploring space and building colonies, we were also building the most powerful hidden fleet in this part of the galaxy. Hayes shook her head. But sir, how could we hide something that big? The aliens have scanners, spy networks. Morrison smiled for the first time since leaving the station. We hid it the same way we hid our real military strength throughout human history. We made our enemies think they saw everything when they saw nothing at all. Back on the bridge, Dr. Rachel Kim was running scans on the alien ships that were following them. She was the fleet's science officer, a quiet woman who usually stayed in her lab. Today, she was very busy. Captain, she said, I'm reading the alien ship signatures. Their shields, weapons, armor thickness. Should I stop? They might notice. Keep scanning, Doctor, but make it look like you're admiring their technology. Kim smiled. I can do that. These aliens seem to enjoy showing off. Lieutenant Brooks reported more alien communications. Sir, 3 different species have sent battle groups to follow us. The Zephyrians, the Hive, and the Craven military. They're not hiding it either. How many ships total? 47 combat vessels, sir. They're calling it an escort mission, but their weapons are powered up. Commander Hayes checked her tactical display. Captain, at current speed, we'll reach Earth space in 6 days. Those alien ships will be right behind us. Morrison nodded. That's exactly what we want, Commander. Let them follow us home. Let them think they're about to destroy a defenseless world. He activated his personal communicator and sent a coded signal toward Earth. The message was simple. The fish are taking the bait. On Luna Base, Colonel Tim Shaw received the message and smiled. Around him, technicians worked at dozens of control stations. Hidden throughout the Sol system, weapons platforms and cloaked ships waited for their orders. Back aboard the Liberty, Ambassador Walsh found Morrison in his ready room. Captain, I keep thinking about what they said, about us being children with toys. Morrison looked up from his reports. Ambassador, do you know how human children learn to fight? What do you mean? They watch, they listen, they let the bigger kids think they're weak. Then, when the time is right, they show what they've really learned. Walsh frowned. Are you saying we planned this rejection? I'm saying we planned for every possibility, including this one. As the human ships continued toward Earth, the alien fleets followed like wolves tracking wounded prey. They had no idea they were flying into the most carefully planned trap in human history. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kextar studied the human ships ahead of them. Pathetic vessels, he told his officers. When we reach their homeworld, we'll broadcast the destruction across the galaxy. Every species will see what happens to those who waste the Council's time. Behind him, his tactical officer checked their weapons. Admiral, our scans show their ships are exactly as weak as they appeared. No hidden weapons, no advanced shields. Kextar's golden scales glittered as he laughed. Of course not. These humans are exactly what they seem, a primitive species that got lucky enough to build a few spaceships. The alien fleet continued, following the humans toward Earth, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They had no way to know that every step of their journey was being watched, tracked, and prepared for by the most patient military minds humanity had ever produced. The trap was set. Soon it would be sprung. 5 days had passed since leaving Nexus Prime. The 3 human ships continued their journey toward Earth, looking defeated and slow. Behind them, 47 alien warships followed like hungry wolves. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the tactical display. The alien fleets had arranged themselves in attack formation, no longer pretending this was just an escort mission. "Captain," said Commander Hayes, "long-range sensors show we're 12 hours from Earth space. The alien fleets are moving closer." Morrison nodded. He had been expecting this. "What's their formation?" "The Zephyrians are taking the center with their crystal dreadnoughts. The Hive swarm ships are spreading out on the flanks. The Craven battlecruisers are moving to block any escape routes." Lieutenant Brooks looked up from her communications station. "Sir, I'm intercepting their battle plans. They're not even encrypting them anymore. They want us to know what's coming." "What are they saying?" Brooks swallowed hard. "They plan to disable our ships first, then broadcast the attack on Earth to the entire galaxy. They want every species to see what happens when someone challenges the Council." Dr. Kim was still running her scans, pretending to study the alien technology. Over the past 5 days, she had mapped every ship in the enemy fleet. Their weapons, shields, weak points, everything. "Captain," she said quietly, "I've completed the analysis. The data has been transmitted to Earth." Morrison smiled slightly. The aliens thought Dr. Kim was just a curious scientist admiring their superior technology. They had no idea she was actually gathering intelligence for the most important battle in human history. Chief Carter's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we're getting another coded message from Earth Command. Put it through to my ready room." Morrison walked to his private chamber and activated the secure terminal. Admiral Parker's face appeared on the screen, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him, Morrison could see the command center of Luna Base, filled with officers working at control stations. "Jake," Parker said, "are you ready?" "The alien fleets are in perfect position, sir. 47 ships, all focused on us." "Good. In 10 hours, you'll enter the outer edge of the Sol system. That's when we spring the trap." Morrison could see the tension in Parker's face. "Admiral, are you sure our people are ready for this? We've never tested the full system in actual combat." "Our people have been ready for 50 years, Captain. Every weapons platform, every hidden ship, every defense system we've built has been leading to this moment." Parker leaned closer to the screen. "Jake, I need you to understand something. What happens in the next few hours will change everything. After today, the galaxy will know that humanity is not weak. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" Morrison thought about his crew, about Earth, about all the human colonies that needed protection. "Yes, sir, we're ready." "Then let's show these aliens what humans can really do." The transmission ended. Morrison returned to the bridge where his officers were watching the approaching alien fleets. "All hands," Morrison announced over the ship's intercom, "this is the captain. In a few hours we will enter Earth space. I want everyone to know that what happens next was planned from the beginning. Stay at your stations, follow orders, and remember that Earth is counting on us." On the Yuyao bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kextar was preparing for the attack. His golden scales seemed to glow with excitement as he studied the human ships ahead. "Signal the fleet," he told his communications officer. "When we enter the human system, we destroy their orbital defenses first. Then we target their homeworlds, major cities." His tactical officer checked the weapon systems. "Admiral, our scans still show only minimal defenses around Earth. A few orbital platforms, some patrol ships, nothing that can stop us." Kextar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Of course not. These humans are exactly what they appear to be. Weak, primitive, defenseless." The Hive Queen Zizak was equally confident aboard her flagship. Her 4 arms worked at different control panels as she coordinated her swarm ships. "The human vessels are slowing down," reported one of her officers. "They appear to be having engine problems." Zach's compound eyes glittered. Perfect. They're trying to delay us, hoping for rescue that will never come. Increase speed. I want to reach their system before they can send a distress call. On the Craven command ship, General Vex was already planning the victory celebration. The bear-like alien had ordered his fleet to record everything for broadcast across the galaxy. This will be remembered as the day the Council showed what happens to species that waste our time, he told his officers. Every world will see the price of challenging us. As the